Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Boss Up, where we talk about how to start, grow, and sustain your business. I am Nicole Jones, your host. And today, if you are in the entertainment industry, production industry, you're going to want to stick around for this episode. Today, we have Wayne Overstreet as our speaker, and he will be talking about the entertainment industry and production background and what that actually looks like and what you should consider if you're looking to be in this space. Hi, Wayne. How are you?
Hi, Nicole. I'm great. How about yourself?
Awesome. Awesome. I am doing well. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm excited that you're here because I don't know if you heard or not, but Atlanta is considered the new Hollywood of the South. So to have you here today to talk about, being in the industry for over 20 years in terms of production, you've worked with some of the greats. I mean, I could list names all day: BET, TBS, through the Wolf Brothers Pro, and then now you're with Go Media Productions as the co-CEO of this particular company. Still, within the industry and sharing details and pretty much a one-stop shop, if you will, when it comes to production. So I'm excited you're here.
Well, I'm thankful. Look, excuse me. I'm humbled to be here. Thankful and grateful. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the Hope and the entire Hope family for choosing me. There's so many people in the industry you could have chosen. So I am thankful and grateful and excited to share.
Nice, nice. Well, I just gave like a little tidbit of information of like where you are, how long you've been in the industry, and some of the great companies that you've supported or networked with and collaborated with. Can you share a little bit more details about your start in this space?
Sure. I started on the post-production side. Actually, I started in music, managing artists, and then I saw a unique opportunity to go into the production space on the post-production side, which honestly, not as many African Americans exist in that space. So I started off managing one of the top post facilities in the Southeast, Wolf Brothers Post. I was there from 99 till 14, believe it or not. In 2014, God told me it was time to leave and start Overstreet Production and Post. And at that time, I started Overstreet Production and Post. But in my tenure at Wolf Brothers, we had clients that I managed, cultivated, and brought on, such as TBS, TNT, Cartoon Network, all the Turner Broadcasting Networks, TLC, Discovery, TV One, you name it. Pretty much, we were very fortunate to have relationships with a lot of those particular networks. And then when I started Overstreet, I was really fortunate to get a lot of TV One projects with Roger Bob. I work with Roger Bob. I work with Rob Hardy. Some of the people I work with at the networks are heads of networks like Lifetime at this point. There's Amy Winter there. There's so many people that I was fortunate to work with. Lamar Chase at TV One and Robin Green Arrington, and I could go on and on with the people who really provided me opportunities to grow and to cultivate those relationships and be able to utilize them when I started my own company. Um, I have to start by thanking God, who's at the forefront of everything I do. I truly believe I can do all things through Christ, and I thank God for that woman He sent me, my wife Ramona. My wife Ramona. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't say Ramona DeBro, who's Ramona Overstreet now, but of course on the radio here in Atlanta, she's known as Ramona DeBro, and nationally, with all of the media stuff that she does, she's my biggest supporter and fan. And without her, when God told me to leave that steady job, if I didn't have her full support, I couldn't have done that. So
Yeah.
that allowed me to step out on my faith and know that, hey, if you take that step, God will sustain you because He is our source. And I truly believe that. But it's when the bills are coming, it's always something that's a little nerve-wracking for all of
Yeah.
us. But I've learned that if you want great things, you have to be willing to take risks. Old lady once told me, said, "There's a lot of fruit on the ground, but to get the good fruit, you got to be willing to go out on the limb." And I've always
Mm,
remembered that, and always tried to keep that as part of my philosophy in life. And
I
then
love that.
yeah,
I love
so
that.
yeah, we gotta be willing to take chances and believe in ourselves, and really more so believe that He's the source, He's the provider, and He will continue to do so. It's not our job, it's not even us or our greatness. It's His grace and His kindness towards us, that if we're obedient and we serve Him, He will sustain us. And so many of us have dreams that we in some cases don't pursue. But I would encourage everyone, please pursue your dream. Be practical, be pragmatic, be plan for it. Don't just leave yourself or your family in a bad situation. I always tell people, prepare for what you want to do next while you're doing what you do, because you're much more attractive to a prospective client or business or job if you're currently employed or if you're currently in that field. It's so much harder when you don't have a reference point for them, and you're just coming in blindly or coldly off the street. So try to keep that job you have and go find a new job while you have it.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like we're currently in this phase where they're calling it the Great Resignation, if you will,
All right,
where essentially a
right.
lot of people are doing, which in fact, what you just mentioned in terms of, they have a 9 to 5, but they actually want to leave that to start their own business, their own company, what have you. They may have already started it live in their current space, or they plan on launching it as soon as they, step out. So it's about cultivating it. And it sounds like, well, a lot of the things that you did was cultivate some relationships as well throughout that process. You named a lot of heavy hitters, some big names globally, and some big names that are here in Atlanta that we know and love. So, in terms of getting your start in this space, what would you say is the best advice in terms of making sure that you have that groundwork and that foundation, and that the relationships are there when you're in the start of the industry of media?
Well, I would say to the groundwork and the things that are important to have in place to help you to pursue that goal in this industry or to grow in this industry is, always be willing to serve. Always make yourself available. I always tell people, when you're on set, be willing to be a PA, whatever it takes, if you really want to be in this space, because there's always people will recognize your abilities and talents if you make yourself available. If you're a PA on set, then do whatever it takes, do whatever is needed, volunteer. Um, you have an opportunity to impress some people that are really in a position to elevate your career and to give you opportunities. And, if you show them that you're willing to work, they can see that you're capable of more than what you're currently doing.
Yeah.
Most people in this business are visionaries or have a eye for talent, because it's part of the skill set that makes a great producer, is recognizing talent, whether it be in front of the camera or behind. So if you display your skills in a manner of just being on time, being early, as they say, early is on time, being willing to stay late, not mumble and complain the whole time you're there. Not, I always call those people, like some people old enough remember the Flintstone show, and at 5 o'clock the whistle blew, and Fred slid down the dinosaur's back, and they clocked out and they were gone. And it's hard in production. It just isn't such a set schedule. You don't get off at 5 every day. Sometimes you work 10 and 12-hour days, and you just got to be willing to put in that time, put in that effort, and show that, hey, I'm here. If we need to stay late, I'm here. So, and I think that makes the difference. The people who want to come and leave on time, take lunch on time, walk around with their coffee in their hand when they're working, those people will struggle, and they won't get the opportunities that they really that could be afforded to them.
Yeah, it sounds like you actually need to take a lay of the land, take and understand the environment that you're in and the places that what you need to do in order to get to where you want to go. So you have to take into account a lot of different things that other people are not willing to do. If you're one of those people that clocks in, clocks out, maybe the production industry is not something to consider, but maybe it's a different part of the production industry. Maybe it's not being a PA, but maybe it's a different department within that space.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
I was
No
just going to
worries.
talk about cultivating relationships and finding people that you have synergies with and that are like-minded people. I've been fortunate to have in Go Media my partner Lynn Gibson, who Lynn and I had worked together for years in different capacities, but never as a team. And I'm a strong believer in together we're stronger. So when there became an opportunity for us to unite, it was a perfect coming together because, as they say, two are better than one.
Yeah.
And some things that are his strengths are not mine, and some that are mine are not his. So it gives us a nice balance. You know, it's always good to find somebody whose skill sets, if you're not a very organized person, I'd say unite a team with someone who's very organized. Or if you're not good at creating reports and documents, but you're more of a people person, um,
hmm
then find someone who has those strengths. And together, you know, you make a nice complete team, if you would.
Yes, yes, it's the yin and yang coming together as one. So tell me, no, that's a great segue into actually talking about more of what you guys do in the production company. I see it when I looked at it and just assess what you guys offer. It's almost like the Amazon of or one-stop shop of production. Like you help with the casting, you help with pre-production, post-production, you help with calls, like just different things that you guys offer. Can you give us an example? We talked about, getting into the space, cultivating those relationships and how you get started. What does it look like if we are actually a client of yours going through the process? Like what's the high level overview of what that process looks like?
A high level overview of that process would be we like to say from concept to completion. So anything that you would need to get a production from your mind, from the paper and your script to a completed film or television show that's broadcasting. You know, we help with casting, as you mentioned. We help with development, things like attaching the cast. We've come up and we've seen over both of us 20 years in the industry have seen how some projects get completed and others don't. And it's a process. It's show business for a reason. Business is in the terminology. And we find that if you do it strictly from emotion, strictly from, your wish list that doesn't have founded merit, you'll never get it done. You have to cast in a way that's strategic and have the right cast members for the right budget point. You can't try to shoot a $10 million budget and cast it with actors that have traditionally only played in TV roles, or you can't have a made-for-TV series or movie and think you're going to cast Denzel in Halle Berry or some of the high-end stars. So you have to be realistic in your approach. So we can help with the casting. We can help with getting a script. If you have a script, we'll get coverage on the script, which is an evaluation of the script and pointers on, what may need to change or how you can make it more marketable, things of that nature. Then we will help you find the financing for the development of your script and for the development of your production. We provide production crews. We provide post-production. We're a distribution company, so we've distributed probably 20 films in the last 2 years. We've had 2 theatrical releases, have a third coming up on Thanksgiving. So we know that space. We know international sales companies to also distribute internationally.
Nice.
We just released Donnie Simpson's video Soul. Donnie is back. For those old enough to remember, and those who don't, they really should go to Tubi and check out Donnie Simpson's video Soul. Donnie is a legend in our industry, and that's another example of the mainstream networks didn't quite get it. They felt like, well, music shows just aren't as popular as they used to be, but it's not like the old show where you watched an entire 4-minute video. Now the video and video soul is like what we're doing now, or FaceTime or Zoom, where people are calling in remotely and Donnie is interviewing them. And we do show snippets of their upcoming feature if they're in a film or if they have a new album coming out. We show their videos as well, but it's more of an interview show. Donnie's a master interviewer, and people just really open up to Donnie, and he's friends with everybody from, I'd say, from Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson to Michael Jordan, and even President Barack Obama are close friends and associates of Donnie. So he's got unlimited reach.
Oh, yeah, I
And
was gonna say he has I was literally gonna use those same words, unlimited reach.
yeah, so
Yeah,
for the
he's
Black
definitely
community
a
in
great.
particular, Donnie is a legend. So part of our mission is to allow the legends in the space in our community to be elevated. We want to elevate faith-based content, inspirational content. Often inspirational content doesn't have the same production value as mainstream content. And I can remember my daughter would come in the room and say, "What are you watching? Is that SD?" Because it just didn't look as
Oh.
polished as the material that she was used to seeing on the screen.
Mhm.
And we have to change that. And I think that's part of our mission, and my mission in particular, is to elevate faith-based stories and have them on par with more secular stuff. I find that we're often forced to compromise and support characters that we wouldn't support in real life, only because we want to see ourselves on screen. So we begin to kind of justify why we're rooting for the bad guy. So I feel like we
Mm.
need to be providing alternatives where there are stories with happy endings and where good people have compelling stories as well. The church body and people of faith are not just one particular group of people. We don't all just go to church. We have life outside of church, and we have drama in our lives, and not all stories about African Americans should start or have somebody in the family on drugs or alcohol or
Yeah.
struggling, because when the rest of the world tells their story, it doesn't always show everything behind the curtain. People have enough of that in real life, and I feel like we need to escape reality when we're being entertained. And
Mhm.
I'm a man of faith first, so I support all people, And I believe that everybody's story needs to be told. And
Yeah.
I think our
Yeah, and it's not, it sounds like it's not even just escaping reality, but also changing the narrative from how our perspectives truly are, and essentially showing the highlights and the positive outlook on what our communities, look like in terms of, going back to, the Christian based, faith-based information. Like, it doesn't have to start with, the drug family dealing situation like you mentioned. It also encourages and inspires and be able to show that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There's not always this negative approach that we typically always see.
yes,
Yeah.
and it's going to
Awesome.
take us to tell those stories.
Yep. 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 Which it sounds like you guys are doing a really good job at.
Have you seen more people now trying to do wills and estate planning now that we've gone through it, are still going through the COVID-19 phase of our lives?
I've seen a lot more people trying to do that, to have wills, to have healthcare directives, to even to the point of having living trust. For example, a will goes through probate, so it's public knowledge. But trusts are not public knowledge, so families are really starting to take a hard look at what if I'm incapacitated.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Jermaine Dolly, Mr. Hello Dolly himself, and guess what? You're tuned in to Tea and Worship with my homies, Mignon and Corey. Keep it locked, y'all.
Hey y'all, it's Candy West, and you're watching Tea and Worship with Mignon and Corey.
It's your boy James Fortune, and you are watching my favorite news show, Tea and Worship, with my sis Mignon and Corey.
You come with a lot of knowledge. You've seen a lot, you've been through a lot in terms of the industry. You know it works because, like you mentioned earlier, once you have an eye for it, you know what you're looking for when it comes to casting, when it comes to production, when it comes to any facet of the production industry. When we think about those who are listening to this and they want to tap into one of those spaces, whether it's a script writer, whether it's the producer or the PA or what have you, what are some of the misconceptions that people walk into this space with that you want to, debunk right now on this on this interview in terms of media and production?
Some of those myths. Well, I think you just can you help me out? Rephrase your question again. I'm sorry. Let me just make sure I'm answering it properly.
So essentially, if there's anything for those that are interested in actually being in the space, no matter what department that is, whether it's the script writer, whether it's the producer, we have a lot of people, especially now that Atlanta is, strumming up every week. There's a new production. We see a yellow sign in the yard with the the code name of a new movie that's being in production. So people are interested in more, wanting to be more engaged in this space. What are some of the myths that are out there for those that are interested that we can debunk on this particular interview today?
Okay. You don't have to come from Hollywood to be a part of these productions. It's not only if you know someone, it's really there are agencies out there that do extras casting. There are agencies out there that provide crew. We help people, land production jobs. It's not only for those that are creative. Not everybody in the film industry has to be a creative. There are accountants, there are bookkeepers, there are, all different. There's stylists, there's makeup artists, there's people in the Teamsters Union that is transportation. They drive the trucks, they drive the cast and crew to and from their hotels. There's catering business. There's just so many different elements and things that come together in making a production. There's location routing. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, one of the things that I find really important is that we always support some of those businesses that you just mentioned, small Black-owned businesses. When you're in these spaces and you're working with different, small businesses or large corporations, do you ever see a gap in the space where you're like, man, I wish more of the Black community knew we needed more people in this space in production? Is there anything that calls out to you?
Yes. There's a few spaces that I often see that I wish there were more Blacks in production, especially one being post-production. There's not enough Black editors,
Wow, I'm actually surprised by that.
Yeah, more so lately, but most of the editors even on most of the Black shows are white or non-Black. Not enough females. I find that females they have the unique ability to be both brain, to be both creative and structured, more so than men. That may sound sexist, but I've worked with a lot of editors over 20 years, and I find that men can be very creative, but if they're very creative, they are normally not as structured. And the women can be very creative and do all their paperwork. The men, it's just, I don't know what it is, but women I guess you guys are multitaskers by nature. And women thrive at being editors and producers. I think we need more Black people on post. We need more Black writers. We need more Blacks pursuing being directors. But really camera operators. When you look on the crews and you look on the sets of the large movies, there's a handful of Blacks.
Wow.
All of those camera operators, the assistant camera operators, which are the guys that support the camera operators and get his lenses prepared and helps him get ready for the next shot. There's script supervisors that, read the script and keep up with where we are in production and continuity. If the glass was if the person drank half of the wine out of the glass, in the next scene, it needs to be half empty. As opposed to sometimes you see continuity issues where, wait a minute, that glass wasn't full, or it was full. Those roles, there's not enough Blacks in those roles for sure. And and I often tell audio engineers, a lot of Black kids want to be in the music industry. And every time I meet a music engineer or producer, I tell them, I say, look, there's a thing called mix to picture, where you use those same audio skills, but it's to a film or a television show. And you create the music for the show, or you create the score that goes in the show. That's all a very unique music skill set that all of these music producers, if they applied it or if were given an opportunity, could do. And as a music engineer, there's like one to a studio. A sound design engineer at a post facility, there's probably 3 or 4 to every post facility. And then there's live audio guys who record all of the audio on set. So think of all the productions going on in Atlanta as opposed to how often an artist is making music. There's a lot of music opportunities here, but why not have the ability to do both and
Yeah.
that expands your capabilities and your opportunities.
Wow. I'm actually really surprised by that. The roles that you mentioned, I mean, I knew there's always going to be a gap depending on the industry that you're in, but the roles that you mentioned, I would have thought, oh yeah, we'd be in those spaces, but especially in the South and in Atlanta. But it sounds like there's still a lot of opportunity for those that are interested, in production in those different areas to kind of use that as an entry point. Even if your ultimate goal is to actually be in front of the camera, in front of the screen, those are great entry points to at least get in the door because it sounds like there's a need for sure.
Oh, it definitely is. Definitely. And then you meet people like any industry. Once you're in the door, you can expand your reach and increase your knowledge and become more valuable and more of an asset. And then you can kind of navigate the landscape and do what it is you ultimately want to.
Nice, nice. I love that. I love that. Is there anything that we overlooked that we should talk about to close out this particular interview? Is there something that it's on your heart, it's important that we discuss when it comes to production, either with your business or just the landscape overall? When we talk about being a boss in the industry.
Being a boss in the industry, I would say be willing to serve. I think I said that earlier,
Mhm.
but there's always the need for serving and helping others. Often, like I could be at a big event and somebody say, "Where were you? I was trying to introduce you to so and so," and I have to admit I was talking to the interns and the PAs and trying to give them
Wow.
encouragement, or the wait staff who was asking questions about how do you get in this industry, because that's ultimately what we're here to do, is to uplift others and uplift each other. So, I tried to instill that in my kids. My kids they're not perfect, but they're good people, decent human beings. And so I'm most proud of that, and, I've been fortunate to have the Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian, may he rest in peace. He was a mentor to me, and he taught me about, while he was at the forefront of the civil rights movement, often he's not in the pictures. And he said, well, son, somebody had to get the work done. No slight
Wow.
against the others, but he was backstage. He was behind the scenes working with the volunteers and organizing and getting everything, because the show can't go on if there aren't people behind the scenes that really do the work. So we all got to be willing to serve. I'll always be humble. Never get too full of yourself, because you're only as good as your last opportunity or the last thing you did. These opportunities can come and they can go quickly. So if you're humble, then I always say, if you treat the PAs, everybody from the custodian to the CEO, you should treat the same. If you treat the PAs nicely, most people who have the wherewithal to be an assistant or an intern has drive and initiative, and eventually they'll be the bosses. And as they become bosses, they become assets to you, because you were once their mentor. You were once somebody
Yes.
who helped them. So now you have a resource and an asset. But I see people who have mistreated people who were their assistants, and now they're in a position to help them, and they're concerned that they may be their enemy. And I always say, well, you had an opportunity to grow and cultivate that relationship when they were under your wing and under your care. So we should approach it that way. And then that way, it's a small industry. If I had $1 for every time Lynn and I come across somebody to go, oh, I met them 5 years ago, I met them 10 years ago, or I was at your festival, the Peachtree Village International Film Festival, or, when I was an intern at Turner, Wayne, you were, you helped me a lot. It's like, well, if we didn't, that would be a real problem. And, so I find that people who don't treat people fairly, it comes back to bite you every time.
Yeah. I love that bit of advice, especially the fact where the example you gave, where you're at a huge event, a conference, or what have you, but you take that time to speak with those who are the interns who are there assisting, because it matters. It matters. Those moments matter, and you don't think, as an intern or someone who's at an entry level position going into a space like this with all these big names and people who have huge impacts in the media industry. And to have that person stop and talk to you and take a moment to say, how's it going? Here's a piece of advice that I can share with you. Even if you don't talk to anyone else because you're running around getting coffee or whatever they're doing on the set, having that moment to speak with them is a huge impact. And then what you would want them to do is a ripple effect, where then when they get to your position, they can remember and do the same to someone else as they go into the same spaces. So that's amazing. I love that. So I took away a lot of nuggets from this. I appreciate you. I think some of my favorites were be willing to serve. I think we talked about that multiple times. And that means at any level. And, case in point, the example that we just talked about. Being able to, I think the quote that you mentioned was not pick up the fruits that are on the ground, but be able to go out on the limb, be able to make certain sacrifices and be able to do and, be engaged and be aware of your environment and understand what you need to do in order to be and reach the success that you actually want. So I think those two were like the big nuggets for me today. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all of you guys, Pastor Smith and Benson and the whole Hope family. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor that you've chose me, and kudos to you, Nicole, and much success in all you do. And hey, if there's ever anything I can do for you in your career, or please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure we'll all be working together as Hope TV is really growing and making its mark in the industry. So
yes,
exciting times for all of us.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Well, thank you guys for watching Boss Up today. Thank you again, Wayne, for being with us today. Wow, guys, if you guys didn't take anything from this, you missed out. Go back and rewind and watch this again, because there was a lot of information, especially if you are in the production space. We even went down so far as to talk about areas where there are gaps in this particular space. So be sure you stick around, find out more about Wayne and his industry and how you can be more engaged in production overall, either here in Atlanta or globally. But make sure you stay tuned to Boss Up and look out for our next episode.
What you're looking